Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this program for a very impactful product. My name is Alan Banks. I work for Rowe Dental Laboratory, and been working for Rowe for about 22 years in several different capacities. And we're a big happy family in a fairly mid-size, larger laboratory, and our passion is for pushing the envelope, the fundamentals of dental technology, but adding the digital component that really today's market demands and perfection demands. Today's program is on grammetry, what we call the barrier breaking, record taking product. Grammetry has been in the market for a little over a year, was in beta for a year before that, and it's really a remarkable service, remarkable product. Grammetry for us, for our dental laboratory, is a whole service, and I'll talk about the service in this program. But really, it centers around, at this point, it centers around um, a particular scan body that you lute in the mouth. And so we're going to talk primarily about that and the service around it. So the first part, I have two parts of this program. Part one is grammetry. What is it? How does it work? Why does it work? So I really want to educate on the product itself and the part of the market that it serves, because until recently, the only way to make a perfect model, a virtual model, was to take a physical model and put it in a lab scanner, right? And then photogrammetry came along a number of years ago, and the laboratory industry helped it become a product, which is scanning these dominoes in the mouth, and then you have a digital representation of the implant, well, the multi-unit abutment positions and implant in some instances, but really it puts the multi-unit abutment in space, and then the laboratory or specific software ties it back to the patient, right? Because the little scan bodies here give you a position in space of the 5 or 6 or 8 implants, but you have to bring it back to a patient. And that's what the laboratory and software does after you do this capture. But the real dilemma, or we could call it the problem statement, with this very accurate way of capturing implant positions, the problem statement is that it's expensive, right? Expensive, and the utility is low. So it's a hot topic. There's as of right now, there's a couple thousand of these in the States, some between the three different systems, iMetric, PIC, and the Micron mapper, which I don't have imaged here. Between those three, there's just a couple thousand systems, because they're anywhere from $30,000 to $55,000 to purchase. And I think I'm not even sure that there are $30,000 ones. It might be 35, and then there's training, and then you have to order the new scan bodies every certain number of scans. And really, the utility is low. And so I don't like to pick on the product too much, because it's definitely a working, viable solution. I mean, we work with this technology every day, works very well. But as you can see here, it's cost prohibitive, limited availability, right? They're generally on back order, hard to get. There is some continuous upkeep with purchasing new scan bodies. The mobility is a little bit of a hindrance too, right? These are bulky and heavy, and you have to oscillate them around the head or leave them stable and move the patient's head around them in surgery. It's a bit of a learning curve. The softwares are not terribly simple to use. Again, I don't want to pick on it. It's just the software will catch up, and it'll be a great software, I'm sure, sometime soon. But really, the utility is the difficult part, the challenging part, right? You spend $50,000 on a piece of equipment. It does one thing. It captures a multi-unit abutment position, right? So if you do a lot of these kinds of surgeries, then maybe the utility is there. Maybe it's a good thing to look at. Um, so grammetry offers a different solution, right? A different way to get to the quote unquote perfect model, the perfect position of the multi-unit abutments. And I'll have some images of what grammetry is, but grammetry is basically a scan body that you screw onto multi-units, you lute it together in the mouth, you scan it extraorally with your iOS scanner, and and based on that, you can make a resin prosthesis, and then you use it physically to make a final restoration. Of course, we'll go through all that, but it allows micron level accuracy. It works with all different workflows, freehand, guided surgery, navigation. It's appropriate for day of surgery or for restorative protocols, either one. And it really benefits practice because it meets a lot of doctors where they are, right? Whether they just have iOS, whether they have milling capabilities, whether they're designing capabilities, anywhere along the development of the practice, this fits into with 1% the cost of a photogrammetry device, and it's available today. You can order it, online now. And so what does it do? It gives you the position of um, the aqua color, the green color analogs, so that we can build something on top. And this is just because we're talking about these two different systems right now, grammetry and photogrammetry. The uh, the green, the green is photogrammetry, and this is a grammetry prosthesis designed on it. And you can see a little sliver here as a difference. Not much. Sub micron, I mean low micron variance, right? Very, very accurate service. And we'd like to compare it to photogrammetry because ultimately, photogrammetry is taken as at the micron level in the mouth directly from a multi-unit abutment, right? So we know that, especially based on their claims and their studies, that 10 microns, 15 microns, maybe sometimes a little bit less, but you are talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 implants. So you have that discrepancy when you have multiple implants. But we do know that photogrammetry capture is very low, and it doesn't have the variables of the normal process: stone, PVS, Duralay, shrinkage, humidity, people, right? It removes almost all those issues that you can use, that you're stacking all the variables to make inaccuracies. You're going right from multi-unit into a virtual world. So we know photogrammetry at least eliminates a lot of the errors for that reason. Well, our contention is that the grammetry does a lot of the same, right? Because you are taking what you see here, which is a grammetry scan body. You're screwing it directly to the multi-unit abutment. You're luting it passively in the mouth, and then you are scanning it with an iOS for a resin prosthesis, which has worked brilliantly. And then you either put it in your lab scanner or you ship it to the lab, and then this is a scan body. All right, so it's direct. All right, that you can pour a model, you can use it to put copings in your prosthesis. A couple different uses of it, but you can put this right into your scanner, and then you're really kind of direct right to multi-unit. So you scan it with your iOS. It's like I said, it's one of the reasons you get into this. It's affordable. It's available for all Nobel compatible multi-unit abutments, and there are lots of them. And you can start right away, probably with the equipment that you have, because you probably have an iOS scanner if you're listening to this program. So when you buy a Grammetry OptiSplint is the scan body, but when you buy the Grammetry kit, this is what comes with the kit. You have scan bodies. We have kits with 4, 5, or 6, depending on how many implants you're working with. The particular special screws, right? We'll talk about the screws a little bit more later. These plugs that go into a prosthesis for restorative, and then these frames that are luted to the scan bodies when you are in the mouth. So basically, this is what's tying them all together. All right, so that is the Grammetry kit. The service around Grammetry is the scan body, our design services to send you files or for us to fabricate here at the laboratory. We have printer verification with a special calibration device that we developed. We support laboratory scanners. We even sell a scanner now, and then final files. Right, so just kind of depending on where you are in the spectrum of the digital evolution, we can support you and we can help you grow and evolve into the next level. Um, Primarily today, most offices are at this level, level two. They just have iOS scanners and the laboratory does the design work and the laboratory prints. That's a level two. And this has taken years to get, most offices to this level. It's about 65% of the market now that has iOS scanners. And then a far less number of offices also have the ability to print in office. Um, that's really where this product can shine for quick turnaround time and cost savings. So that's a level three. A level four is a doctor can print, and they are able to, and they're also able to capture at a micron level, which means they have a lab scanner. Okay, so the lab is still designing, but the dental office is able to prevent, or avoid shipping any type of materials to the lab because they're able to scan everything as a lab does. And then level five is manufacturing, right? So an office is equipped to manufacture all the files that we send. So let's go through Grammetry since we want to really explain the workflows now that we kind of know what Grammetry is. We want to go through some of the workflows, and there's some creative things you can do with the system, right? But for the most part, these are the modalities, and that is using a TAD or a screw, um, or using a combi guide, or using teeth or a denture as a reference, or robotics. So you'll understand all of this more as we go through each of these scenarios. Whenever you go through one of these processes during the surgery, where this is a surgical workflow, right? When you go through the process, you have to preserve the bite, okay? Because in surgery, the patient loses their teeth, and you need to have records before surgery and records after surgery that maintain the bite. Now, how do you do that when the teeth are gone? Well, let's go through that process. So the first modality is probably the most popular one, and that is where a doctor will use these screws or TADs. They're there's different terminology. We also call them fiducial markers. But the idea is that these markers are in the mouth before surgery. They're also in the mouth after surgery. Now you can see there's a lot here, right? I've seen cases where the doctor just uses one in the palate. But really to dial in the bite and to preserve the bite, sorry, is you have multiple. And maybe that's three right here in the palate. Maybe it's two in the palate. Uh, but the markers or the fiducial markers are placed and it's captured, right? You have to capture that position before the teeth are extracted and the bone is leveled or however whatever the surgery is going to be, and then you capture these after, right? So now you have a before and after, just like you have teeth in a regular type of situation, right? Instead, these kind of replace the teeth as the bite. Okay, you'll kind of see more as we go through. Now, these screws or TADs, they can be purchased from several different companies out there. These are three. Don't really sell these too many because it's on a facial, so probably just kind of avoid this image here. You want to purchase a screw, which would be a short, wide one from Salvin, which is nice. Or if you already have the Osteogenics Pro kit, the ProFix kit, you can use this as well. So that's the screw head that we use. And we'll also have a little um, spacer a little bit later in the program that you can place under these that keep them elevated above the tissue and help with scanning. All right, so you have to have some screws if you're going to use that modality. And then really you just need the OptiSplint kit. You need some material to lute, which you can use composite, but composite's a little brittle and it can come apart if it's not used perfectly. So we really like this stellar material. It's basically a non-shrink acrylic. Um, you should have just a pair of forceps just for delivering this to the mouth, the frame. I mean, they have a little frame here, but sometimes these break, so I have those. And a curing light. That's about all you need. Some luting materials, and you need a driver to put the screw in. But what you need chairside is very limited to perform the the um, the luting process. So this is just a little summary because we're going to go into the details. But these are the 3 scans that you take during a surgery, during the day of surgery. So you put the screws in, you take a scan of the upper, lower, and bite, capturing the screws. You go through the entire surgery, and then you capture the healing the screws again with some healing collars. Okay, and then you take a scan of the OptiSplint. That's it. Those 3 scans. Okay, and they're really the same scans you would take if you were doing photogrammetry, except you're using your iOS for all of them, right? So let's just go through a case. A patient first thing in the morning, well, whenever it is, um, patient is anesthetized and the screws are placed here in the palate. Now, one issue is it's a lot of scanning to reach back here with your scanner and scan an entire pallet. So you can put them up on the ridge unless this is going to be reduced, right? So therefore you can put them here on the walls of the pallet, or you can move them a little bit more anteriorly. But this is a nice layout, so maybe just a little bit more forward. All right, so put the screws in, and then you would scan upper, lower, capture the screws. Be very careful with this scan, right? You want to make sure that it's stitching really well and it looks really just pretty much perfect. Okay. And then and here you can see the screws are in here after surgery. Okay, so we have the before, and then you scan after as well and capture this. And then you also seat the OptiSplint to capture the multi-unit abutment positions and lute it together. Okay, this is a stellar material, it's a light gear material. And one of the things you want to be very cognizant of is that you don't want to have this material out over any of the scan body area, right? Only back here on the vertical part of the frame and the horizontal part of the frame, right in here. Okay, so that's nice and luted, and that's removed. You don't scan it in the mouth, you always scan it extra orally. Okay. And with this captured, or I mean, you can scan this last, right? You don't have to take it right out and then go scan it because you're in the middle of a surgery. So rest this, set this on the tray or on the counter, and then you will seat the healing collars that you're going to suture around. So we work with a bunch of different healing collars, many different ones. All right. So more than likely you have one of these in your armamentarium, and what you'll do is you'll seat them on the multi-units. Um, please use one in this family, or the tissue will be off. The intaglio of the prosthesis will be wrong, and we could have other mistakes too. So please be sure to use one of these. If you have a different one, let us know. But you'll seat them, and then you'll scan. Right. So then you perform the next scan, which is healing collars and the fiducial markers. If you have a tough time scanning this, because some scanners really struggle with moving blood, moving sutures, lots of tissue area. Like I would not use the iTero, for instance. I would definitely just make sure you practiced if you use the iTero. Some other scanners will not work. We'll give you a list shortly. It's in the program, but you'll struggle with that if you don't use the right scanner. You can also take a PVS impression of it, right? So here you see they captured the fiducials back here and then scanned. Okay, so that's an option too. take it out and scan it. Okay, and we will use these markers to take the post-operative record, and we'll use these just like tripoding and bring it back into the preoperative, which provides us the implant positions under the teeth. Okay, so here is luting it all together. All right, he's cleaning off the screws back here. It's all luted. And then originally they were scanning in the mouth. That's how it was all. It went through beta that way. It actually did very well through beta with scanning in the mouth. But let's face it, scanning intraorally is tough. And it's not necessary, right? The patient is breathing on the lens on the camera, and the patient's moving, and there's blood, and it just leads to inaccuracy. So just take it out of the mouth and scan it on the bench. And once surgery is finished and you've captured all these records, you'll upload them to our laboratory, which is the preoperative with the TADs, post-surgical with TADs, OptiSplint, some photographs. That's it. If you have a lab scanner, pop the OptiSplint into the lab scanner, and then you're at the micron level, and we're making something very, very accurate. All right, two varies. It's very accurate without, it's very, very accurate with. All right, based on that, we will take your records, we will design a prosthesis very quickly. In fact, we can do it in 1 hour. Just make sure you pre-book with us, but we can make it in 1 hour, and then you're off and printing in your office and delivering. Maybe same day, maybe next day. Kind of different out there in the marketplace. I think a lot of offices want to do it same day, but let's face it, by the time an hour goes by, and then nesting, curing, cleaning, beautifying, it's time. It's a lot of time in the chair. So you'll have to decide if that's right for you or not. Okay, so here's an in-office print. Looks very nice. Very nice work. And the patient this was the same day. There you are, delivered, smiling. All right, so that's the first one. That's really don't talk about too much about these arch tracers anymore. Change that. The next one is guided, right? Because the first one was really a freehand workflow. We've also really perfected the Combi Guide guided workflow. And the Combi Guide is a metal or plastic. We also sell a plastic, which is a metal fixation base that's delivered with this pin guide. This metal stays in the mouth, and then you use this as a bone reduction leveling. Okay, and then you use an osteotomy guide. And what this allows you to do is pre-plan for bone reduction volume, right? We have to know that the adequate amount of bone is reduced for the prosthetic thickness. Okay, and then your implants are controlled, right? Rotation depth, MUAs are in a nice place. You've worked out the AP spread. It's a nice way to go. So probably about half and half right now, guided and freehand. All right. So let's just go through this process. Just like with all surgical guides, we need a CT scan. We need preoperative records. It'd be nice to have a CR bite, but really we just mostly get CO, and then we open the bite, or we do a little back and forth with you to work out the bite. Some photographs, and then off we go to planning. So we'll plan the case with you, make sure all the implants are in the right positions. Happy with the whole plan. And then after that, we will send you the case. This is what shows up. There's that picture again. Pin guide, fixation base osteotomy guide. Real simple. And what's nice is that in the lab, we already have the teeth. We've already completed a setup. I don't really have an image of it here, but we've already completed a setup for this case. Right? We already know the tooth position, the size, the shape, everything. All we're waiting now is for the implant positions. So that's a very efficient way to get the case done on the day of surgery for us for turnaround time, because we have the preoperative records 2 weeks, 3 weeks before. Okay, day of surgery. the pin guide goes in, and you can follow our Combi guide or Chrome guided system to see how the pin guide works, because that's very important. Pin guide goes in, delivers a fixation base. The fixation base is left behind. At this point in surgery, you're going to take your iOS scanner. You're going to scan the teeth and the fixation base, just like this. Okay, you don't have to gather the linguals and the palate and all that. We just want the teeth and the fixation base. This is our fiducial now for pre-surgery. Okay, pre-surgical. Then you use the fixation base as the bone leveling tool, right? Flatten the bone down to the metal, which is nice because it's metal, because you won't grind it with a burr inadvertently and get resin in the site. Um, then, so there's just kind of before and after showing how it's used as a bone reduction. Implants go in, MUAs are seated. The carrier guide goes on. Now this is a clear carrier guide. We actually make it in a tooth color for easier scanning. But this goes in. Then you scan the carrier guide in the mouth with the healing collars. All right, so put healing collars on the multi-unit abutments, seat the carrier guide, scan, and be sure to pick up the fixation base. All right, because that's the fiducial. All right, so this gives us the implant position relative to the opti-splint. The fixation base gives us the breadcrumb for the bite, right? And then we move on from there. The the opti-splint is then luted to all the implants and removed, right? Take this back on the bench and scan it now or scan it after surgery. And then you upload your files. Okay, so there's one more file, one more scan that you can add. I'll explain that one. But we have the pre-surgical, right, with the setup. You have, so this is already at the lab. We don't need this. We have the first scan of the morning, which is a fixation base in the teeth. Second scan is fixation base, carrier guide, and healing collars. And then the third scan is of the opti-splint. Now, a fourth scan you can add in here is carrier guide comes off, fixation base comes off, suture around the healing collars, scan. That gives us the tissue, right? Now, we've planned the tissue for this case, so we know it's flat, we know where it is, right? So we can kind of estimate 2.5 millimeters of tissue, but you can add another scan in here, help us be a little bit more accurate. All right, so just real quick going through a case, Dr. Agarwal was one of our very first, and he sent us these preoperative records. We made the combi guide. We made him one in plastic. So he scanned this, he extracted a few teeth, but he kept these remaining for the bite. He did scan the he's a great scanner, right? So he scanned the opti-splint in the mouth with the fixation base. Fine, we made it work, no problem. But normally you would take it out. And these are the records we're working with, right? Patient photographs. We have the bite to confirm before surgery photographs. We have the records. We have the cone beam. Um, and then we go to surgery. And then based on this, we made her a lovely smile. And here's the fixation base scanned in the mouth, preoperative, all right, teeth, scan of the opti-splint, opposing, and then we design the prosthesis. And you see the tissue gap. All right, we've done this thousands of times, so we know the tissue gap and how to develop for it. But the other scan you could have captured is giving us the sutured tissue, and then we'll meet it. All right, so that was the grammetry with with a combi guide with guided surgery. All right, let's go over the next one. This one's pretty popular too, because we know that if there are teeth in good occlusion before surgery and teeth in good occlusion after surgery, right, then we've got a good reference for the bite. So in this case, you would leave teeth. This is Dr. Sully Sullivan, another one of our KOLs that's been working through grammetry and a lot of different things with us. In fact, Dr. Sullivan and Agarwal do a little bit of teaching on this, so you can look them up. Uh, okay, leave teeth for the bite and perform the grammetry between them. Okay, and that what that means is that you would scan, right? You would scan lute. This in this case, you scan it in the mouth and outside the mouth. So you scan, lute them all together, scan to pick up the teeth, the fiducials, the bite, not the bite, but the fiducial markers, which is basically the teeth. Okay, unscrew it and then scan it outside the mouth for a little bit more accurate of a scan. All right, what do you send us? You send us the preoperative with the teeth, the opti-splint in the mouth, the opti-splint outside the mouth, opposing and bite and photographs. And based on that, we will design a case. Now, in this case, the posterior teeth were extracted after all the records were collected. All right, so there's the records, and then there's the restoration, teeth extracted. This is what the patient's going to have, I believe. Maybe the teeth were left for good. Not sure. That's an option too. All right. Yes, we like this. Okay. The last modality. Now, there's different ones that doctors have developed, but these are the main ones that we teach, that we espouse. So, the denture reference. A lot of offices now are just ordering a denture, right? An immediate denture for capturing the records because it's very familiar, right? A lot of doctors are very good at taking bites with an immediate denture loaded with blue mousse material, some kind of PVS, and that will pick up the healing collars, right? So then we have the healing collars, the denture, the teeth, the tissue. We have everything we need for a virtual articulation, a real articulation after surgery. Let's just go through this one really quickly. This was a freehand case, Dr. Hansen up in Michigan, and um, uh, edentulous, put the implants in, multi-unit abutments, performed the opti-splint, then put the healing collars in, right, upper and lower. Okay. Then what doctor did was load the denture with load the denture with material. The upper is already in the mouth, been seated. They're both wet, right? Not set yet. And now he's manipulating it and closing. Now at this point, doctor has already tried in the upper denture, lower denture without any material to make sure that they're not hanging up on the scan bodies or on the healing collars because they're kind of tall, right? So you have to grind out the inside of these duplicate dentures or immediate dentures to make sure that they're not wobbling on healing collars. All right, they need to fit just like dentures. So once that is set, okay, they're removed. You scan the prosthetics 360. All right, and then you hold them together. Now you have an I just scanned the whole thing. I don't know why I scanned the whole thing, but you have two options at this point. You can either reinsert them back into the mouth to scan the bite, which probably will not be comfortable for the patient, or just hand hold them and scan the bite. And now we have everything we need to virtually articulate the case and marry with the upper and lower uh, representations of the MUAs, the OptiSplint scans. All right, so upper, lower, scan 360. There we go. All right, got them both seated. Had to do a little bit of equilibration there in the posterior of the teeth. Happy with the bite. All right, and then scanned for the bite after he reinserted. All right, so based on that, we took this back in the lab. We have all of our records. All right, looks good. We captured the healing collars, both sides. We have the bite, we have the teeth, we have the smile, the tooth position, the midline. We have everything we need to make this case. It's a really nice way to do it. Yes, this looks a little messy, but for us, this is we can geek out on this and make some upper lower restorations really quickly. All right. So on this case, these are the simple records, right? 360 scan of both dentures or the denture. If it's a single arch, then you would seat this back in the mouth and scan the opposing and the bite. That's how we would bring this back to the patient for the articulation. Scan of the opti-splints. He did it intraorally, but again, this was early on. So those would be extraorally and both dentures, the denture reference. Okay. Um, just one more note on that. After these records were captured, doctor went to the Grammetry page. Doctor had already booked the surgery. For instance, he knew it was going to be next Thursday, and we were going to receive the records at 1 in the afternoon, double arch, and then he uploaded the records to us. And we'll go through a little bit of that in a minute. But once we have his records, right? This was the case we were just looking at. Then this is what we do with it. We align to the implants. Align the implants to the dentures, and then do a design. Send it off for approval if desired, or we just send the files. And these are not copings. Those are just pretty colors of the inside of the restoration. But this is direct to multi-unit. All right. So that's the modalities. Those are the different ways to accomplish these cases in surgery. So it's important to know the process, right? Because you don't want to just send us a case this morning right out of surgery. We will not be ready for you. We have a team. We have a whole room full of people that design these cases all day. It's what they do, but they do it on a schedule. And we can handle some surprises, but we don't like them. And we want to do our best work for you. So what that means is that you will go to our website, roaddentallab.com, click on products right here, go to the bottom right, Grammetry. Okay. And then once you're in there, then Bob's your uncle, as they say. You can submit your case after you've booked it. This is where you would submit your cases on the day of surgery. Right here is where you schedule for a 2-hour or 4-hour turnaround time. Right. We're going to change that to 1 hour right away. We are going to upload. You're going to upload additional files in case we didn't get them here, in case we're missing something like an opposing. Or if it's the first time coming to Row, then go here and create a new account. So most of this should be done a week or 2 weeks before you know a surgery is coming up. Like if you know a surgery is coming up next Friday, today is, for instance, Tuesday, book it, schedule it. There'll be times in there to do it, availability. And then on the day of surgery, click the green here, and there'll be it's basically an RX, right? It's going to ask you the important questions about your patient, about the surgery, about the implant, which arch, etc. And then you're going to drag and drop your files. Please be sure to print off our checklists. Let me show you where those are real quick. Okay, go to the Grammetry page, which is right here. Grammetry page on our website. Once you are on here, then everything you ever wanted to know about Grammetry is on here, and Photogrammetry. We have a Photogrammetry page too, but everything you want to know, compatibilities, how-tos, videos, um, uh, submissions for books, for patient booklets, how-to booklets. We have a webinar that we had that you can watch and learn. Um, all the different printers and scanners that we recommend. Everything you want to know. Here's some comparisons of other systems. Compatibility chart. A lot of things on here that that'll help you so you don't have to call and ask questions and look for people. You can self-educate right here. Webinars again. So there's so much. I just keep going here. And then finally, there are checklists, right? So they say workflows, but this is a checklist for the team based on um, TADs and screws, combi guide, tooth reference, denture reference, and then a restorative workflow. All right, so print the checklist, and that way you know exactly exactly what to send when you're submitting your case. No mistakes, because if we don't have an opposing, we can't make the case, right? If we're missing the scan of the tissue and the healing collars, we really can't make your case. I mean, we could try, but it's going to be less than perfect, less than ideal. So use the checklists. We do have a restorative workflow as well, and there's a checklist on our website for this. Um, it can be very useful. We do have some other techniques for a digital workflow, one called the iJig, which I would probably recommend, over the OptiSplint Grammetry workflow. But this does work as well. And then in this case, you would, this is a patient who's healed. They're maybe they need a new prosthesis. Maybe it's time to go to a final. All right, so you would do the OptiSplint, scan the current prosthesis in the mouth with a little bit of tissue, scan the opposing, scan the bite, scan the tissue in the MUAs, and then you would scan the prosthesis 360 outside the mouth with those little plugs that come in your kit. And based on that, we're making you either a new temporary, we're making you a final restoration. Works great. It's a wonderful technique. But as I said, you probably want to look up the iJig. That's a patented product that we've made just thousands and thousands of times to go from an existing prosthesis to a new final or temporary prosthesis. All right. And you can do that either with iOS or with a lab scanner, instead of shipping us the OptiSplint. Okay. Dr. Tal this is his case, and he's been working with us now since the very beginning on this wonderful product. All right, part two. Let's go in some technical stuff. Um, and again, we have a lot of resources for you. Obviously, you can rewatch this video. You can join our Grammetry Facebook, that's where we make our announcements, where we share cases, difficulties, challenges, solutions. It is open, not a private group, but it can be very helpful. Um, if you click on this dinosaur here, you can also order a book that describes the whole process. You can book a one-on-one with someone here at the laboratory to discuss your specific needs and questions. We have a lot of grammetry on YouTube, and then a lot of educational resources. So we do not just sell you a product and then good luck. We support you through the whole process. On our website, you go to shop online and pick Grammetry, and everything you want is about Grammetry is on here. I would not order the arch tracers, but the OptiSplint, the kits, you can buy singles, you can buy kits, and you can buy this. If you're new to printing, you will want to buy this Grammetry print calibrator. You order this, it physically shows up in the mail. We email you the file to print, and you make sure that this fits passively. No surprises on the day of surgery that your printing, cleaning, curing is not printing a roundhouse full arch prosthesis accurately. Okay, you have to know that. So that's a good buy. All right, so let's go through this part two has several topics. I'm going to cover some of these in a little more detail than others. But the top issue is I want to go through that first, and that is the issues that we see with cases, because you'll want to know these when you're getting started. The main one is clean OptiSplint scans. When I go and talk to our designers, I say, "What's the number one problem?" They go, "Well, it's the quality of the scan." Because you can imagine if you're in implant dentistry, if your team or someone did not scan a scan body at all or very well, you can't register it, and the patient's coming back. Well, the patient can't just come back in a full arch surgery, right? That's not going to happen. So you got to have it done right the first time. So that means that you don't have any tissue covering on an OptiSplint, or you don't have it's not covered in blood, or you don't have the luting material covering one of the scannable areas. All right, so just be careful, double check, make sure they're really clean, make sure the stitching was good. All right, and you'll have a really good result. Uh, Healing caps. Be sure to tell us which healing cap you're using. We want the brand, and if it's not in our drop-down list, then we need to either work with that company or you need to physically send us one of those healing caps for us to measure, right? Otherwise, we're mounting the case digitally wrong, and we've had that happen, and it is not a fun day at all. All right, so that's very important. And the prosthetic screws. We want to know what prosthetic screws you're using, right? Are you using the DES or the Vortex or the Dan Rosen, right? Pretty much those three. And I know there's a SIN. They also make one. Might be some others in the market coming around, but you have to tell us which one you're using. Otherwise, the screw channel is the wrong size. Okay, so that happens too. And be sure to place TADs and capture them very well. We covered that. Um, the scan bodies that you put into a prosthesis, they must snap in, right? If that's more of a restorative protocol, but if a patient has a prosthesis and you're putting the analogs in, make sure that they're all the way down. Because if they're not, then we have that implant in a wrong position, and it's just a big question mark, or we'll get the tissue wrong in that area. Be careful that opti splints are not too close together, right? They can't touch. And if they are touching, adjust them. I'll show you a couple cases on that. Be sure that you have all of your scans. We had to basically develop a customer service team to call for missing files and to communicate, but for missing files, and because we know it's TikTok, right? I mean, we only have so much time before you need this file back, but we're missing a bunch of records. And then just careful with bytes, right? If the byte comes in wrong, you're going to be adjusting, right? So we want to be very, very careful with byte registrations. And just remember that the green light, what I mean is go time, right? Red light, green light doesn't really start until let me it's 1 hour now, until we have all the records, until we say, yes, the records are good, which if you don't hear from us, the records are good. Okay. All right, so let's just go through all these topics. First is an update. We now have a Neodent, and what that means, I didn't clarify that really well in the beginning of this. We make kits for Straumann, Neodent, Nobel, BioHorizon, MIS. The only difference in all those is the screw. Okay, that's the only difference. The OptiSplint is the same. The actual physical scan body is the same. The only question is which driver do you want to take out of your kit to drive in the OptiSplints? That's all that means. See right here. MIS is not on here. They just brought it back. Okay, but the OptiSplint itself is the same. All right, very important. It's also critical that you use their screw. We'll talk about that. I got a slide on that. So they also are now including a healing collar in their kit. So if you want to use their healing collar instead of other ones out there, theirs is very nice. They're very smart people, and they designed one with the right color and the right design so that it's easy to scan. So that's a nice update. We also now have a kit for your first case, for every case that has there's a little video online to watch this, but inside the kit, there's a UPS label to ship it back to us, already made. And inside we have instructions for the most common, which is TADs, and a QR code for the other types, other modalities. Okay, and then we have some tape for taping it up. We have Stellar for luting. These are all optional, right? So they're a la carte. You can add what you want. OptiSplint kits, right? That's depending on what system you're buying, will be in the kit. Okay, then we have the return packages that kind of gently compress the OptiSplint so they don't get damaged when they come back. We have pliers for snips for snipping the framework when you need to. We have a calibration kit, all right, the calibrator. All right, and then just some extra little components if you bought if you bought extra scan bodies. And that's what comes in the box when you order a new case from us. All right. Another one is we offer this tenting screw cap. So you put your screw through the hole and then you screw it into the palate or other places in the mouth. And then it's a lot easier for the iOS scanner to scan that than it is just a screw head. All right, so we give this for free. Just email us or instant message us. We'll share it with you. Okay, we already covered this, but we increased our library, our number of healing collars to just a bunch of them, all the popular systems out there on the market. All right, so nice little update. You can be creative, sort of. You want to be careful because make sure that we know what you're doing when you're being creative. But it's okay to trim an OptiSplint if they're too close. Right, that's one method. Just trim it right here. Um, take out your burr, your handpiece, your high speed, and grind it. Probably ground that one in the wrong place, but that's okay. This one was ground as well. Made a gap because you can't have any tension. If you have tension, there's a problem. They're not going to be fully seated. All right. You can also be creative with your placement of the OptiSplints. All right. So if you have, teeth that are being used as a bite, and maybe they're going to be in the place where the implants are going to go, then put the OptiSplints in some other areas. All right. But keep the teeth as the bite. You can see here that here's the bite. There's teeth here, 3 implants, 3 OptiSplints. Then the teeth are extracted, put the rest of the OptiSplints in and keep luting. We can marry all of this together. And then a scan of the healing collars, bite, OptiSplint, bite registration, and we can actually work with all this, right? So you can be creative this way too. We've worked on some very tough cases, right? A lot of Zygo implant, multi-units are compatible with Nobel, right? So use your OptiSplint. I mean, look how creative this was back here, right? We had to stretch from pterygoid up here to Zygo up to Nasalis all in one case. Worked out really well. This is Dr. Jackson down south, and he's done just marvelous work with Grammetry. Okay, so be creative. I want to just quickly just touch on the parts of the OptiSplint, the technical data of the OptiSplint. So let me just define what areas are. This is called the horizontal, the vertical wing, the horizontal wing. These are the luting holes. This is the connection area, and this is the scan body, right? So we don't use any of the rest of this as a reference for dialing it into registering it to the implant. We use only the top here, okay? And the bottom currently is only I say Nobel compatible, but if you look at our compatibility list, which I'll pull up, you'll see it matches with, I don't know, a couple of dozen implant systems out there because they've all copied the Nobel platform. The screw that comes with the OptiSplint must be used with the OptiSplint. Do not substitute this with a different screw. You see the little bevel here? The bevel marries with the bevel inside the channel and it centers the OptiSplint on the multi-unit. If this is a right angle, you lose centering. All right, or you might get lucky, but it will probably cut a groove inside of here and then you're off center. We don't want that. All right, so the screw comes in this little tube here, comes with the driver of your choice, right? It depends on if you want to use MIS, 050, um, uh, Neodent, Straumann, you pick, whatever driver you want to use, that's the screw in the box. All right, and then what screw you're going to use in the prosthesis, right? Grammetry, Danrose, and Des. We want to know which one. They all have their little pluses and minuses, and this is the one we recommend the most, the Grammetry, because it has this little bit of wedging and convexity here, and it really nestles down inside the resin nicely. A little more of a wedging action here, and a little more of a right angle here, right? So we really like the Vortex screw, and you can buy these from us. You can buy these from us. Then you would buy these from the Rosen site. The nice thing about the Grammetry screw is that it's the longest thread out there, and depends on if you're using resin or zirconia or titanium to where you want to place the head, right? You can raise or lower the head based on what material. All right, so if you're in resin, you want the screw to be tall, really high, a lot of material under here. If you're working with tie copings or titanium direct to bars, direct to MUA, you want it to be low. It doesn't need to be quite as high, but that way you have more threads for long term down in the multi-unit abutment. All right, so that's kind of the philosophy of the Grammetry screw by Vortex. Okay, and just some screw, some screw engineering here. This is more of a rounded seat, so it disperses the pressure to the sides, to the bottom, to the outside, where this is all outside, and then this is all down right on that little ledge. Okay, so just different ways of looking at it. All right. The nice other thing is that the Vortex screw does angled screw channel. All right. So if you're screw now, of course, this is ideal, but a lot of them aren't, and they're coming out of the facial, coming out of the lingual, and or in an interproximal, someplace you don't want it, we'll change it for you, and the same screw works. It comes with a special driver. Every Vortex screw comes with a special driver called the T5, and they're all made for ASC, angled screw channel. Okay, so you have to, if you buy this, you have to buy the driver. Best records. As I've already mentioned a couple times, the records. And please do not use a portal for sending your files. Don't use the one of 17 portals out there. Use ours. Go to the Grammetry page. Tell us what you're ordering. Drag your files into here and send them. Because if we have to go looking for your files somewhere, um, it's going to slow everything down, right? And we probably won't have the questions that we need answered. Which implant? Which screw? How fast do you want it? Details, right? So please use our portal. Make sure you have everything in there. We don't want to get piecemeal. We don't want to get some photos in the morning and some STL files mid-morning and then the critical ones in the afternoon. Save them all and then deliver them all at the same time, right? Rather than broken up throughout the day. And then just make sure you pre-book. Gotta pre-book, right? No surprises. And then use our checklists. They're fantastic. They are step by step for the team to know exactly what to do. And then just a quick thing on photographs. We want to get some really good photographs of a patient. Cell phone's fine, right? But full face, full smile. We want to see how the teeth and the lips are and the eyes. Don't have the patient lying down, anesthetized, opening their mouth, trying to get a picture. Do it before surgery. Have them stand up against a wall, smile, tell them something funny, and just get them to smile naturally with normal gravity affecting their lips, right? If they're lying down in a chair, turning over to the right, looking at you with a smile, it's bad, not good. Have them stand up. All right, that's enough on that. Thank you. And if we are dealing with overjet, overbite, lip support, we're changing a patient drastically. Take a couple of profile pictures too. Helps a bunch. All right. Full face, full smile, even exaggerated. Another picture would be nice if it was just overly exaggerated so we can know the transition line. Have the patient say, or, almost lips together at rest, and then a profile. Okay. Good. Thank you. And send us a couple of retracted pictures in occlusion. That way we can really verify the bite. All right. Those are the photographs. Now, capturing records to bite, please be sure to capture bilateral digital bites. Don't just stop on one side. This side will be open or closed. Okay, these scanners are not perfect, so go around the entire arch, get everything. Okay, or we will. Well, here I have a little video here showing. All right, so watch. I believe. I believe I didn't do much there. Okay. Anyway, it's showing overbite, overjet. But you can also test this when when you have your scanner, turn the patient down, turn the patient up, and look at the insides of the teeth, and then turn one arch on and off. You'll see that the teeth are overlapping or they're not even in contact at all. So bilateral, very important. And then just again, be careful about collar heights because although they really should only interrupt the registration of the tissue scan, if we have different healing collars, it can throw off how we are, how what we think about this case, and it can really throw off a bite. It shouldn't, but it can, and it has before. So be very careful with the healing collars. And then some tips, right? These are just some bite tips. Um, Sit the patient up for the bite because uh, especially when a patient doesn't have many teeth or they have 5 different bites, have the patient stand up, sit up, practice the bite, then capture it, visually confirm the bite during the scan, watch them bite, make sure they're doing something repetitive. If you want to open the bite, I would suggest doing it with a leaf gauge or some method that allows you to get the patient in a centric relation bite if you're opening them a lot on the day of surgery. We're not doing some type of diagnostics for, a few appointments. Open the bite up and then just inspect it thoroughly before sending. Look at the digital scans inside and out. Make sure there's no overlap because you don't want to adjust. You know, you don't want to adjust when you're seating. This is checking a bite. All right, so left, right. This is probably not too difficult of a bite, but look here inside. Look right up in the molar area. See that? See the overlap? It's just a little bit. But if it's a little bit in the back, it's a lot in the front, and you're going to be adjusting. Here's another one. All right, so this is all right. Is the patient really in a crossbite? Or did they really bite like that normally? Probably, but let's make sure. Is this the proper overjet? All right, look in the patient's mouth, look on the screen. Is this correct or not? All right, that's just some tips on it. Um, and then when we're doing a combi guide, obviously this is going to be a tough bite, right? Fixation base. This is the preoperative, but these are very tough bites. Double check everything to make sure that the scanner didn't get lost. That there was no a break in the scan as you're going around the arch. Very, very critical, especially on the combi guide ones. And then capture the records that are needed. We don't need the fixation base and the opti-splint in the mouth. It's an extra oral scan, right? Make sure that if you scanned this fixation base with the healing collars, you actually captured all the healing collars. That's why we make the carrier guide. All right, so seat that and pick up everything. And you don't have to, it's not necessarily the more scans you give us, it's the better scans. These are the scans for the surgery, not the ones that had an X. All right, so just follow follow the checklist. Okay, and then lab scanner. Just quickly, we're selling some lab scanners. More doctors are picking them up. They have a high utility. Where I say photogrammetry has a low utility, one use. If you have a lab scanner, you can scan a denture for a duplicate. You could scan your models. You could scan bites. You could scan opti splints. You could scan bodies that you've picked up. There's so many things that you can put in a lab scanner and send off and become a real digital lab. So this is one of our good friends and doctors he does a lot of tricky cases with us, and these are all of his tools, right? Trios implant is GM. He's got a Medit lab scanner. He uses the white healing collars. He has a frozen printer. He uses packed end sculpture, these tenting screws. as well as these. And then this particular case is a combi guide and immediate transfer. So he used all of these tools in this case, which is a lot going on. So he sent us the records, the upper, lower, and the bite, and we met him online and completed the online meeting. We sent him the combi guide with a denture, right? So he can do a denture wash. He went through his surgery, right? Just what we talked about before, the whole process. And he used the denture to send the records, right? A wash impression inside the denture. He placed the denture inside the lab scanner. He placed the OptiSplint inside the lab scanner. And based on that, based on scanning the OptiSplint, he's just micrometers away from accuracy, from capturing that on the multi abutments. So really nice process here, the scans that he sent to us. And then based on these blobs, which don't look like blobs to us, we align everything together and make him a prosthesis, just like that. And then he prints it in office. All right, but the lab scanner is really what dialed it in. We already kind of talked about how to schedule and uploads. I kind of skip over that part. And then compatibilities. So we work with a lot of different systems. These are all the multi-unit abutment systems. There's more on the market. These are just the main ones, right? So as long as you have this implant company that you're placing these implants, then their multi-unit abutments are compatible with Nobel. Okay. These are the iOS scanners. We really just kind of say don't use iTero unless you are a very good iTero scanner. It really struggles with certain complicated scans like we do with this service. This is a new one. We sell this Shining one. Very accurate, very fast, and very affordable. Probably the least expensive of all of them. But you can also buy the face scanner, and the face scanner and the iOS scanner, they are compatible. So you scan and they automatically register, and off you go, sending it to us. And their face scanner is the best on the market. I mean, I've seen them all. It is incredible for $5,000. OptiSplint, these are the different kits that you can buy. These are the healing collar compatibilities, and there's more as you saw. And then the prosthetic screws that you'll need to screw in your temporaries that you're printing. All right, I have some do's and don'ts. Kind of go through this pretty quickly because we kind of talked about them, but we're good, right? But we have to be careful of what we send in. So if it's not even available to be done normally, very well, we can't do it, right? So this kind of really tricky situation. We can't mask that. We can't cover it. If implants are just grossly out of line, then something else has to be happen besides a restorative trick, and Grammetry won't fix that. Definitely take advantage of angled screw channel. One of the do's is let us know. Yes, I want to angle all of these sites to make the prosthetic thinner, right? In this situation. So take advantage of angled screw channel with the Grammetry screw, the Vortex Grammetry. As I mentioned, don't mix and match healing collars, right? They have to be identified, and they really need to be the same. Otherwise, we have problems. Okay. Make sure you take bilateral bites. We talked about that. Make sure that you scan OptiSplints very clearly, that there's no materials covering. I'm going to show just one more video about bites so you can see, watch this. So there's a lot going on here, but see what happens with the bite. Kind of throws things off. The vertical ended up being the same, but that's because we had to find some middle ground to put them together. So just be careful with bites. And forgive me, I'll just mention angled screw channel one more time because we can do some wonderful things with changing the angles of screws, right? You don't want this thin wall here or this thin wall here. You want this screw in the middle of the tooth, and you don't want this in an embrasure. We can fix all those with angled screw channel. Okay, that's this case, so we can fix that. Be careful with luting. Follow the rules. This is a frame that is up on top of the scan bodies and the vertical wing. Put it down here where it goes, right? Otherwise, we have a real challenge with working with these. It worked, right? We could see the scan bodies, but it's just not the proper way to do it. Be sure we're compatible. We do not work with Zimmer TSV yet. They're coming out with a multi-unit that's Nobel compatible. But if you're in this situation, we can only make a prosthesis on these two implants. These sites are going to have big holes that you'll have to pick up some temp cylinders. All right, so we have to be compatible. Follow the list. More TADs are better. Kind of covered that. Make sure opti-splints are not touching. You can always trim them. So it's just kind of a little recap of do's and don'ts. When you use your scan caps, put them on the intaglio, not on the occlusal. Okay, so just some of the do's and don'ts.